Hopefully your next read is right here. Let's talk about the 6 books that I finished in the month of September. We have a YA romantasy duology, the first book in an adult romantasy, a YA romantasy by a debut author, a smutty dark academia dark romance, another smutty dark academia, Why Choose, and the last book in a trilogy and a portal romantasy, Why Choose as well. For each of these books, I will read to you what the official description says, but I will also give you my own summary of what the book is about with 0 spoilers, and I will also give you my thoughts on each book. Let's begin with The Forbidden Alchemy by Stacey McEwan. This is Stacey's 2nd series and the first book of that series. It's an adult romantasy, but the world is very similar to ours as far as technology goes. She got inspired by Peaky Blinders. There's spice, there's magic, there's secrets, there's corrupt governments, and it is honestly very worth it. The reason I'm starting off with this book is because this was my book club pick of the month. I have a book club. It's called Nerds of a Quill. I say this in every video, but I do so in the hopes that you'd want to join, and you can follow along on Goodreads, Fable, Storygraph, or even my Discord. I actually put out a poll of about 6 books for members to vote on, and this one won unanimously. Also, before we get into what the book is actually about, can we just, isn't this so gorgeous? It is so beautiful. I just absolutely love the colors, love everything about it. There's even a whole pretty map in here. Let me read to you what it's about. All Nina has ever wanted is to become an artisan. All Patrick seeks is a craftsman revolution. Will they choose their greatest desires or each other? Nina Harrow and Patrick Coulson are only 12 years old when they are whisked away from their disenfranchised mining towns to dazzling Bellevere City to test for magical abilities. Nina's lifelong dream is to become an artisan, a powerful elemental mage who fulfills the city's grand ambitions, while Patrick wants only to reunite with his family of craftsmen in the mines. Together, they discover a devastating secret. Artisans aren't born, but chosen. With this information, they part ways. Patrick returns home, while Nina finds her place as one of the rarest, most coveted types of artisan. When a craftsman revolution ignites years later, Nina is captured by Patrick's rebel group, and he hasn't forgotten her. In fact, he needs her help for a mission that could shift the tides against Bellevere City. She reluctantly agrees to aid him, battling the sparks between them. But when Nina's first love reappears, asking her to betray Patrick for the artisans, she faces an impossible choice that will determine the fate of the world. Amazing. So to put it in my own words, essentially, in this world, everyone at 12 years old goes to drink this sort of elixir type thing that will then determine if you belong to the artisans or the craftsmen. The artisans are the artists, the thinkers. They're the people who create things with their minds, while the craftsmen are the bodies, and a lot of the times they are miners. And usually they have no money. They come from towns that are very sickly, where people die all the time, where they have no food, no money, etc., where artisans are usually very rich and powerful and maybe have something to do with the government, etc. The book opens up when Nina and Patrick are 12 years old, which is the age that they're required to go and test for where they belong. They start talking while they're waiting for their group to be called up, and Patrick is a little bit rebellious and he challenges Nina to follow him. They happen to discover and overhear that craftsmen a lot of the time are not even given the right thing to test, and so that's why so few people who are from these towns actually ever become artisans. Patrick steals some of this evidence, and when they go out there, Nina decides to basically take it and become an artisan, while Patrick chooses to go back home. For the next few chapters, you basically are only following Nina while she basically goes through school, and you find out different things that happen to her in school. And you also overhear the fact that there's a revolution starting with the miners, where rumors are flying that the elixir is fake and that the government is actually manipulating the results. You can imagine that she rightfully assumes that this is Patrick's doing. There is a time jump. War is officially happening. Nina decides that she doesn't want to pick a side and she doesn't want to be used because she's a very rare artisan and the only one of her kind at the moment. And so she decides to disappear. By the time you meet up with Nina and Patrick, they are fully adults. Nina is taken by the miners that Patrick leads to be used on a mission. And essentially, it's this interesting dynamic where they both knew each other when they were kids, but now they're very different people. But could they also still have that connection that they had when they were kids? They each have really like hard responsibilities and things that they've gone through these many years. And so it's about them feel like finding each other while also dealing with this war and this revolution, while also seeing if there's like spark, but should that spark lead to anything? Is that even smart? They're both keeping secrets from one another. Can they even trust each other? So it is very intriguing. I honestly could not put it down. I feel like I read this in like 2-3 days, and the only reason it took me that long was because I unfortunately have a day job. Like, that is the only reason it took me that long. It was so good, and I'm so glad that my book club picked it, because sometimes I get behind in my reading and who knows when I would have gotten to it, and I would have been so sad. I had read Stacey's previous series, which is the her Glacian series, and I really enjoyed that series, but I will say that this one, I don't know if it's just like, her writing was always good, but her writing here, I found it just amazing. I loved both her characters and how they each were good people just put in really horrible circumstances, and these circumstances started when they were so young, when they didn't know like what that would mean. And I just felt like Stacey did such a good job about putting us in both their heads, because it is dual POV, and just really like making us feel something for them as individual people, and also rooting for them as what they could be together. And it just, I'm so obsessed. I don't know how much to say without spoiling, because there are many twists and turns, and honestly I loved it. Recommend to anyone. And a really quick side note, I have a show, it is called The Nerd Tea, where I interview authors. You could find it basically everywhere, and Stacey McEwan was actually my third episode that ever came out. This was back when she was still advertising her other series, and I remembered that she actually had talked about this at the end of that episode.
Next year, I'm releasing the first book in a new romantasy series that's called A Forbidden Alchemy.
And she teased it really well. I just went back and listened to it, and she was like, this, it's called Forbidden Alchemy, it's this, this, and this. And I remember back then being like, ooh, intrigued. And so it's crazy how that turned out, and it was definitely worth the wait. That episode is still there if you want to hear about her first series, but also we have a huge chunk where we talk about her writing and her writing style and process and everything about storytelling. So please go and check that out. But I just thought it was such a fun little tidbit with this book. Next, let's talk about Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is actually the second one in this series. The first one is right here. It's Divine Rivals. It's a duology, so it's done. You can read and get the whole story in one. This is the special edition. The actual covers don't look like this at all. I got this special edition, and they're so beautiful. They're so cute. I won't tell you exactly what happens in Ruthless Vows because I don't want to spoil anything in this video, but I will read to you what Divine Rivals is about, and then I will just discuss the series overall. On a side note, I read Divine Rivals years ago, and I don't know what happened, but I kept putting off Ruthless Vows, being like, I'll get to it. And I didn't realize that Ruthless Vows came out like 2 years ago, and she was gonna come out at this point that I'm recording this. She came out with a new book called Wild Reverence, and it is based in the same universe, although you don't have the same characters. It's apparently like hundreds of years before this story. So, but I didn't know if there was gonna be any spoilers, and I went to an event where I met her, and I was going to hear her talk about the book. So that is why I panic read Ruthless Vows finally. And let me just say, worth it. Like, I don't know what I was thinking putting it off for so long. Anyway, let's talk about what Divine Rivals is. Oh my god, even the inside, actually. This is so cute. So cute. Okay. When two young rival journalists find love through a magical connection, they must face the depths of hell in a war between gods to seal their fate forever. After centuries of sleep, the gods are warring again, but 18-year-old Iris Winnow just wants to hold her family together. Her mother is suffering from addiction, and her brother is missing from the front lines. Her best bet is to win the columnist promotion at the Oath Gazette. To combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish into the hands of Rune and Cait, her cold and handsome rival at the paper. When he anonymously writes Iris back, the two of them forge a connection that will follow Iris all the way to the front lines of battle for her brother, the fate of mankind, and love. Divine Rivals is an epic enemies to lovers fantasy novel filled with hope and heartbreak and the unparalleled power of love. There's a lot of things that the summary skips over that I believe I can tell you without it being spoilers. So let me sort of talk about what the series is as a whole and what that means for Ruthless Vows. It follows two rival journalists. It mostly follows Iris, but it is a dual POV and it does go between Iris and Roman. They are connected in two ways. One is that they each have a magical typewriter that can basically send messages to one another. Iris doesn't know that it's Roman that is writing back to her. Roman eventually does figure out that it's Iris, and the reason that that happens is because they both work at the same newspaper and they're rivals. And he kind of starts recognizing a lot of the same things that she talks about and kind of puts it together. But he doesn't say anything because he just doesn't say anything. So, you know, in real life, they're kind of like rivals, but on paper, they have a really nice and sweet connection. Things happen, and Iris actually enrolls to report in the front lines, and she's out there. There are two gods that are warring. This is essentially almost like a World War I, World War II type story, but instead of what actually happened in our history, this is two gods that are battling. So Iris goes to the front lines to be a war correspondent, and at some point Roman does follow. And so it just basically follows the story of these journalists as they cover this horrific war and all the things that they're seeing, all the things, not only what they're seeing as far as like in battle, but how the community is reacting, how the people in charge are talking about it, like all the different propaganda, like there's a lot of that going on, while also there's a lot of like slower moments between not only Iris and Roman, but also the other journalists that are out there in the front lines and the people that are out there fighting as well, the people that they meet along the way. So I found a very, very good story. I just love the storytelling of it. I love the language. I love how the world felt so rich. I also think this is a very good fantasy for people who are starting off in fantasy because it is so much like our world. In fact, I would say that Divine Rivals, minus the typewriters, you don't really see magic. You hear that they're gods and that there's like magic and stuff like that, but you don't actually see anything except for the typewriters. So it's a very simple fantasy to get into. Ruthless Vows does have a bit more of it. There's a bit more involved at this point. I won't again say what happened, but things occur and Roman and Iris are accidentally sort of too enmeshed with the war and the gods now. And I won't say how again, but because of that, you do get sort of a front row view of what's going on with the war and the magic and the gods and all of that. It has two very great main characters, but also fantastic side characters. I also really like how simple the magic system was if you just want something fantasy, but without it being like so much, like if you're just not in that mood right now, I think this is great. It is also a very sweet romance, and like it's a rivals to lovers, and who doesn't love that? But it's also very sweet. And of course, like I am dying to read Wild Reverence as well, so this is just a great way for reading that book and then having Easter eggs, according to Rebecca Ross. That's what she said. So recommend the book. I'm so glad that I finally got around to Ruthless Vow. How silly of me that I did not read it earlier, but there it is. The Princess Knight by Cait Jacobs. So this is amazing because this is actually an ARC book, and I don't know if you can see it right there. And it is also the debut of Cait Jacobs. If that name sounds kind of familiar to you, it's because Cait Jacobs is a book talker / bookstagrammer. She has a huge following with being like a book influencer, and this is her debut novel, finally. I believe it's a standalone. I'm actually unsure. I feel like it could be a standalone, but it could also be a series, but also a standalone. I probably should know that information because I did talk to her, and I'll get more on that in a minute. But it kind of like reads almost like a standalone. It also reads like a fantasy version of Legally Blonde. So if we love Legally Blonde, we're gonna like this story, and I really enjoyed this story. It was very cute. It's YA, so there are like hints of dark elements, but it's still very palatable for the young adult crowd. But it's also really entertaining for an adult like myself. Let me tell you what it's about. Oh, side note, a lot of the names are Irish names. I did have the pronunciation guide. I don't currently have it with me, so please forgive me. Love is a battlefield, and blondes duel it better. Donal and Clea are an ideal match, or so everyone says. They are prince and princess of neighboring kingdoms, an alliance the gods would smile on, until Donal ruins everything by refusing to propose. Heartbroken but determined, Clea devises the perfect plan. Follow Donal to Caitlin Costa, the military academy he's attending. Show him she can protect her kingdom. Secure the betrothal. Sure, the castle has brutal reputation, but how hard can dueling really be? Warrior Ronan promised himself he'd never lose his focus. He's fought and sacrificed for his place at Caitlin Costa, and he has no time for blonde princesses who waltz into arenas like they're attending a ball, even if she and her otter-like pet are, well, cute. Ronan doesn't want to be intrigued by Clea, but her hunger to prove herself is something he understands. He tells himself there's no harm in training her, even if his pulse does race around her, even if Donal is his best friend. But a battle of love isn't their biggest problem. Unfortunately for them all, a very real war is looming at the horizon, and they will put their skills and their hearts to the ultimate test. So we have this really girly princess that is super into fashion, loves pink, you know, she grew up very spoiled. Her parents are not the best leaders. They really are all just about glitz, glamour, and parties. And so she was kind of brought up that way in a way. It is implied, though not specifically stated, that our protagonist is a little neurospicy and she is autistic. So fashion is basically her hyper fixation. Cait Jacobs is also autistic. So she writes her very well. Like, it's not a caricature or like this stereotype of what it is. It's actually very subtle, and I actually wonder if I would have even picked up on it had I not kind of known that ahead of time. So take that as you will. She has known this prince from a allied kingdom her whole life, and it has basically been understood that the two of them are going to get married when they are of age. So finally the time comes, and this is chapter 1, by the way, no spoilers here. He comes to the kingdom where everyone is like, it's the time, like he's about to propose. Instead, he comes with news of like possible war with another kingdom that is supposed to be their ally, but is now on the outs with like the governing priesthood that also has like magic, and so they like can help people type of thing. I don't know how else to describe it. She describes it much better than I. He comes with the news, and I'm assuming that because of the horrible response from her parents and also what he kind of already knew about this kingdom, he decides to not go through with it. He breaks things off with her and essentially tells her that he needs a queen that is serious, because if they do go to war, he needs a queen that can actually lead and fight rather than her who doesn't know anything. So heartbroken as she is, she decides, you know what, all the royals get an automatic bid to this military academy where they go train. She knew that he was going, so she's like, I'm gonna go too. I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna prove to him that I can be tough and I can be a great tough queen. A huge part of the story for her is following her journey into, you know, first she's doing it kind of like Elwood's. At first she's doing it for other people, and then slowly she starts growing into the person that she wants to be and the person that she could always have been if only people had believed in her sooner. So it's a great story in that regard. At the same time, it is a dual POV, so you are following Ronan, who is not only the best friend of Dornan, which was her almost like fiance, betrothed, but also in his guard, and they've been best friends since they were younger. Ronan wasn't always in the guard. His village was attacked, his mom was killed, and he was saved by like the lead military guy who now runs the academy, and that is why he followed in these footsteps, because he just basically wants to make them, like, these people proud, because he feels like he got a second chance at life. He also has chronic pain. You kind of see it every once in a while. He'll complain about it inwardly. He doesn't actually complain because he kind of like gets really mad when his body betrays him. So I found that really, really interesting, that he is so capable. Everyone thinks he's like basically like God touched because that's how good he is at fighting and strategizing and with a sword and everything, and yet privately he's actually in a lot of pain. And I thought that was a really good dynamic, and I love how both of them separately, for their own reasons, are people pleasers and are doing things mostly to prove themselves to others and to prove something to themselves. And so I found that inner turmoil really fun to read. And outside in the world there's like war brewing, so that's kind of like the backdrop of that. And there's, you know, who can you trust, who can you not, etc., etc. And there's a whole cast of characters that are fun. It's a lot of like chosen family in this one, and their romance I think is really cute. It's very slow, it's a slow build. They become friends first. Can we can't, I'm princess, you're in the guard. Like there's this whole thing happening. It's all very sweet though. There was no question that they respected each other and they liked each other. It was more like circumstances. So I thought it was really cute. I think this is a great debut novel, and I'm so glad that I got to read it. I'm so glad that I got to read it before it came out. And the reason that that happened is because I reached out to interview Cait. It was a great conversation. We had so much fun talking about the book, the writing, and socials, and just like fun. We just had a lot in common, so it was a great conversation. So please go watch that episode as well. The next books that I read were either digitally or audiobook. So very recently, a couple girlfriends and we went to a cabin to do a weekend of reading, basically, in a small cute little town. It was a reader's weekend, and we were each reading our own thing, but we did decide before that weekend that we were gonna read a specific book, and then we were going to discuss it. And that book is Blood and Betrayals by Jeanette, Rose, and Alexis Rune. It is the first of what I believe, according to their Instagram, is going to be 5 books, and it is an indie. Let me read to you what it's about, and forgive me while I look at my laptop. Fear, fury, and fire. To know is not enough. Power flows through the ancient halls of Avalon University like a never-ending flood. Admission to the elite institution enables students to hone their magic under the watchful eye of their icy headmaster. Summer Tuatha Dedean planned to slide through her tenure at Avalon, unnoticed and inconspicuous. She has no interest in learning more about her past or why someone applied to the school on her behalf. Her emotional walls keep everyone at bay, and her sharp tongue makes people give her a wide berth. Yet, despite her best attempts, her emotional armor begins to melt from her feral vampire roommate to the angelic senior who is never dissuaded by her feigning disinterest. Maybe this could be good for her, a new life. Yet dark secrets lurk in the halls of Avalon, and soon those same halls are drenched in blood. Summer finds herself as the obsession of the sadistic stalker with the 7 lessons to learn. With the help of her new friends, she races against the clock to solve the mystery, hoping to save lives and catch the killer before it's too late. Summer is a fae who grew up with humans, so she's very new to that world, and she is a little bit different. Every fae has very specific magenta eyes. She has blue eyes. So she attends this university. Somebody applied for her, she did not apply, and there are all other types of supernatural creatures. We have angels, vampires, shifters, etc., etc. She's not very good with people. She's had a pretty dark past, and she doesn't really trust anyone. However, she starts trusting her best friend, who is a vampire, her roommate, and then eventually starts a sort of romance with this golden retriever angel. At the same time, murders are happening in the campus, and it's looking like more and more they revolve around her. Without getting too much into spoilers, I will say one thing is that she realizes that they kind of look like her, and then she kind of realized that maybe they are wearing something that she would wear. So those are some things and other things that kind of make her realize that she may be the actual target and other people are getting killed sort of to get her attention. I want to start off by saying that with indie books, I am a little bit more lax in how I sort of rate them, because I understand the struggle as an aspiring author myself who very much has considered the indie route, I know that it is very difficult. So I am a little bit more relaxed with how I sort of rate them and think about them. There's a lot of things that I loved about this story. There are some things about it that I wish could have been maybe gone over another editing round. Overall, it was an enjoyable read, and I am very curious about what happens with the rest of the book. So some random things I want to discuss, and I'm not sure how to segue into it all pretty, so here it is. The world building was really fun. You could tell that the world building is a lot more expansive than what we are shown in this first book, which is great in a fantasy when you already have a lot of different creatures because you don't want to get everyone confused. So I thought the academic setting made it very easy for us to kind of follow along with what's happening in this world. Our protagonist is a little interesting. She is sort of hot and cold all the time with the people around her, and I guess it's because she doesn't really know how to ever interact. She doesn't really have a lot of friends when she was growing up. I will say the authors kept mentioning how she doesn't really let people in, but I kind of disagreed. I felt like right away she was kind of connecting with her roommate and right away kind of connecting with Connor, which is the angel. So I kind of disagree with that assessment. Like, a lot of her actions want to show that. So there's that. I thought the mystery was a lot of fun and very eerie, and it gets even more so as the book goes on. So that definitely kept me on my toes, and I really enjoyed that. I feel that this has the possibility of being a reverse harem. The whole book, it read like a reverse harem waiting to happen, but it wasn't. But it is a first in 5, so I'm not sure. She has a connection with several people, one of them being the headmaster that is obviously very concerned when these murders are happening and when they find out that she might be connected to it. So he gets very involved in trying to help her figure out what's going on. The other is this sort of strange, shadowy being that refuses to show who he is and keeps telling her that she is only with the angel because he's allowing it, and she's young and he's allowing her to find herself before he basically claims her. And then there are other ones that aren't like quite as obvious, but I just feel like like, are you setting up like a lot of people reverse harem over here? I wasn't sure. I have no idea. It is just how I was reading it. There's a lot of sexy scenes, a lot of sex. Our girl is a bit kinky, and she loves having sex basically everywhere, and our angel is just happy to oblige. So, like I said, I felt like it needed like one more round of editing because it is very long and some scenes seemed a little repetitive for me. But overall, I thought that the characters were fun and the world building was fun and the mystery just kind of kept me on my toes, and I am very curious as to where the series goes, so I will read the rest of the series. Next is Dear Reader by Tate James. My friend recommended this one, and apparently it is a trilogy and the 3rd book just came out. The first in an all-new, spicy, and suspenseful Why Choose Romance series from TikTok sensation Tate James. Dear reader, you want my advice? Never look a gift in the mouth. You don't want to see the rotten teeth. In this case, the gift is a scholarship to attend the prestigious Nevada University. The rotten teeth? Well, they came in the form of my brand new stepbrother and his little cohort of entitled, arrogant best friends. 4 dangerously handsome and stupidly wealthy men who made up their minds about me long before we met. Men who are used to getting everything they want no matter the price. I was a big girl. I could ignore them. Then came the secret society hazing, kidnappings, crazy parties, insane stunts, mind-blowing prices. Even so, I could handle myself. Until the secret and stolen moments with men I had no business falling for. It was enough to give a girl nightmares. Since people are probably concerned, as I was when I read the summary, about the whole stepbrother thing, they are both adults, like in their 20s, getting their masters, and their parents just got married. So they are step siblings, but they did not grow up together. When the book starts, they haven't even met yet. So let me just put that out there just in case, because I also was like, I don't know if I can do that, but apparently I can. Now let's talk about it. It follows this girl. Her mom marries this billionaire guy, and they basically facilitate a scholarship for her to go to this prestigious university where her stepbrother, her brand new sexy stepbrother, and his 3 other friends who actually have lived with the stepbrother since they were teenagers. They all attend. They don't make the best first impression. They seem to think that she is a whore. They don't treat her very well. There is a little bit of the bullying trope at the beginning, but in my opinion, it didn't get too far into it. I've read some bullying tropes that I personally, it's not my thing. I felt like this one was just enough of the bullying groveling situation that I enjoyed it. They kind of keep running into each other because technically speaking, now that she is part of this family, there is this legacy with this secret society. She actually finds a journal that details somebody's encounter with that secret society when she was going through initiation, which basically says that it is much darker than what it appears. Like, it's not just a bunch of rich kids doing like really kind of like silly things because they're bored with all their money, but it's actually a lot more sinister. She sort of gets forcibly put into this society, and really dark things kind of are happening with her, and she's not sure who is doing that. She even suspects that it might be her stepbrother and these friends. At the same time, it does keep having this connection with like at least the friends at first and stuff, and so there is that element of spiciness. It's a fun why choose because she kind of starts having a connection and then ends a connection, like it kind of like that kind of popcorns out a little bit. All the while these things are happening and they're kind of like, could they be it? But also they're protecting her, so like it's kind of confusing in a way. And so she's trying to figure out, what the heck is going on? Like, why is somebody targeting her, and is it her specifically, or is it just like because she's a scholarship kid? Like, what is happening? Why is she being targeted? And then at the same time, she's trying to figure out, why does she have like, she's developing these feelings for people how she shouldn't be developing feelings for. It is dark romance, it is dark academia, so just keep that in mind. I personally enjoyed it. I have read some dark romance. I'm not a huge dark romance reader, mostly because I find that I, for the most part, cannot handle it. But I actually enjoyed this one. I felt like I could handle it. Like, there was like a healthy dose of like the dark without it feeling too much for me, if that makes sense. And finally, the last book was one that I heard in audiobook. It is the third book in a series that I have been listening to. I talked about the first two books in my previous video, my book wrap, in my August book wrap. It is a series that follows this girl who discovers that she is a half witch, half fae, and also that there was a prophecy made about her that basically alludes to the fact that she will be the reason that the evil Fae Queen will lose power. And so obviously the queen is now hunting her down, trying to get her killed so that this prophecy does not come to happen. At the same time, she is trying to find allies so that she can survive. All the while, she is being helped in more ways than one by three very sexy fae men. It is a why choose. It is a slow burn why choose, I will say. Like the first book, it's very slow burn. Obviously now I am in the third book and it's a little bit more than that, but that it is very slow burn. Let me read to you what the first book, Luxe in Between, is about, and then I'll kind of talk about the series. Niam Luxe Finnegan is trying to move on with her life after losing her last known family member to cancer. She takes over her aunt's store, Hecate's Boutique, and prepares herself to continue grad school, believing herself entirely alone in the world. Luxe's parents vanished during a vacation 2 decades ago, leaving her without answers. But everything changes when Soren, a stranger who claims to know the truth about her parents, enters her store. Soren reveals truth about Luxe that will alter her life forever. Her dormant magical abilities awaken as her world spirals. If the Fae Queen knew Luxe's true identity, Luxe would be dead already. As it is, the Queen is growing curious about Luxe, which means she's in danger. Fleeing with Soren, she embarks on a perilous journey, joined by 2 other High Fae, Alistair and Caelix. Surrounded by the 3 distractingly gorgeous Fae males, Luxe finds herself in precarious situations concerning both their lives and their hearts. Together, they attempt to unlock her magical potential as they unravel a prophecy about the Fae monarchy and try to avoid capture. The whole series is just an escalation of what happened in the first book, which is, again, they're trying to avoid the Queen's notice. And then that escalates when they inevitably do. Then they're, trying to gather allies, and then that escalates when it becomes apparent that there's going to be like a straight up battle, and like just as they're getting allies, the queen is also getting allies. She first believes that she has no magic, and now she suddenly does, and two different types of magic. So there's going from having zero knowledge and zero control to now trying to grow and control her magic. And then at the same time with the three males, it's, you know, they're strangers, and there's like that slow burn. She is human, so the idea of it being like, of her being able to choose the three of them does not even occur to her. So if, you know, there's like that turmoil of like, what is happening? I can't be attracted to three guys at the same time. Can she even trust them, etc.? And obviously that starts growing by the time the third book comes around. There it is more, if it is a more established why choose reverse harem pairing. I found it really fun. I thought it was a great story to listen to while I was commuting to work. I don't always do audiobooks, so this was intriguing to me. I will say, on a random personal note, I don't do very well when there are like sexy scenes. Even when they're not even like full on sexy and just kind of like teasing, I feel mortified that people will hear me. So that is the only thing I could not focus. If you watched my previous video, I did have a criticism a little bit with the first two books, but especially the second book, where I felt like, because the first book I said it's a lot more tension more than anything else, but the first book it's sort of, it's not like an established, but it is but she is establishing more of her individual connection with the three of them as well. I personally felt that the harem was not equal, that there was much more attention being paid to one particular person. It made it so that it actually was a little distracting to me, like to the point where even when we were getting scenes with this person, I was annoyed that we were getting another scene with him rather than a scene with the other two. Like, it almost felt like the author didn't need to have three of them, but she just wanted to because they all looked different. In this third book, it is more even, and I did enjoy hearing hearing the scenes, hearing more of the intimate scenes with each of them individually, because I did feel like it was a little bit more equal. So I'm glad about that, at least. Like, it was a lot more enjoyable, and it was like more of a proper balanced reverse harem. And those are the books that I read in September. Hopefully your next book that you'll add to your TBR is right in here. Happy readings, and see you on the next page.